Hi, my name's Lindy and welcome to the first of my videos on my channel for 2019. For those of you that have followed this channel or me as that channel over the last 5 years, thank you. Thank you for those that stuck with the channel and stuck with me and that are still watching and still subscribing or still donating or still supporting in some way, still booking sessions, etc. And for those of you that are new to the channel, welcome. So I'm going to kick off with the first of the videos for 2019, January the 5th today, and the title of this video will be January 2019 Energy Broadcast. January 2019 Energy Broadcast. Now I hesitated there because I had in mind to record a different video to this today, one that is swimming around in the mix. So what I mean by swimming around in the mix is I was having realizations or recognitions on certain things, which is sometimes how it happens for me, and sometimes all the pieces come together and then I get up on camera and share it. And so I had thought this was going to be a video slightly different to this, but that one hasn't completely come together yet. So what I mean by that is I haven't got all the information, all the dots haven't entirely added up to make that overall picture or that, let's say, shift in consciousness. So I'm not going to put up the video I thought I was until I have the final bit of the picture, which usually if it comes in this form, I have that final bit of the picture within about a day or a couple of days or something. Not usually goes on, it doesn't usually go on as long as a week before I have all the input, and then I'll come up and share it. So that will be for another day. So this is not the video I expected to record, and the way I work is you will see on my channel, I guess there's only about a handful, literally a handful of videos that I've ever made notes before I've come up here and read from notes or bullet points. I mean, I have done that maybe 5 or 6 times out of 250, 260, or however many videos are up there, maybe more than that. So I work very spontaneously, total from instinct, intuition, in some ways a form of channeling, I guess you would say. All of those things kind of combined. So I literally decided in a way on the title of this video literally 1 minute before I came on here. So there is nothing rehearsed, no ideas, no practice, no nothing. It's just going to come straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So the title of the video being January 2019 Energy Broadcast. Well, first I'm going to start with saying it may be January 2019, but as we begin this year, for millions of us, let's say billions of us, it is really a continuation of some of the old streams of our energy or our old streams of consciousness, or in other words, in plain speaking, it is a continuation as it begins in and of what we were already participating in, experiencing, going through in our lives in 2018. So what I would say is your starting point is not your end point, and this is very much to me, I feel as I am saying it, a year that is of new beginnings. But in order to have those new beginnings, really we have to come to a point of not just accepting in our brains or minds, but accepting in our energy fields, accepting in our essence form, in our soul form, accepting in our personalities, in our minds, the endings of certain patterns or behaviors or belief systems and certain places that we've been caught up in. Now, this is a worldwide human trait that no one escapes from, really, and I've yet to meet one person, actually, in my personal or professional life, that hasn't been or isn't entangled with something. It's just part of the human experience, and people are at different stages of that as they are going along. So as this 2019 year begins for us all personally, it may feel and seem as if it is beginning, and in fact it is, with some of the aspects that were going on in 2018 just being brought through into 2019. But in order for those aspects to be changed or transmuted or transformed or alchemized, it really is a case of us all, let's say individually but also collectively, recognizing within ourselves where we are getting caught up or snared up in the old way of thinking or the old way of reacting, the old stuff, the old programming, the old soul damage, or the old bruising to the ego, or the old personality bruising, or, you know, the old belief systems, the old patterns, the old. So don't be alarmed as this year begins. If it seems like not only are you almost continuing with that a bit, but that's, for some of you, it might seem as if things have dipped a bit and actually deteriorated a bit as you enter this year. There is a saying which I feel may be helpful, in that, you know, when the sea rushes up the sand or rushes up the shoreline there, when it pulls back out again, sometimes it seems like it's got to pull back out a long way before it surges forward. And there are huge parts of what we have to transform individually within ourselves as unique expressions of consciousness, but also collectively, where we have to sometimes seem as if we are dipping back into or diving back into places that we don't want to dip back into or dive back into, in order to free them up. So some of you might say, well, I've done the work on freeing it up, or I've done it on a personality level, I've done it on an energy level, and yet it's still not freeing up. And as I've described on this channel many times before, it's like a sequence of locks. I always describe it like a bicycle lock with a sequence of codes on it, number codes on it, and they all line up, and then it undoes. It's a sequence of things that have to be in alignment within us, within our energy field, not just within us like that, but sometimes that collective thing, the ancestral thing, you know, the global thing. Sometimes a lot of things have to be moved into place like chess pieces on a board before that is moved, let's say, and freed up. So we tend to look at our view of the world as what is happening in our world, each and every one of us, in our own inner world, and what's affecting us on a daily basis. And of course it's a very human thing that we do there, but the bigger picture here is also kind of not being too hard on yourselves, and recognizing that we are at, let's say, a pivotal point in time where, as more and more people are awakening and raising their consciousness up, that as part of that there is almost like a unique individual and yet collective responsibility for the recognition and the letting go of and the clearing of these past thought forms and thought patterns and frequencies and vibrations that we all, without exception, have either gone through, have had a history of, or are going through. It's a worldwide thing where people get snared up. It happens to everyone. So 2019 really is the beginning of the end of those entrenched patterns and behaviors and belief systems that millions are entangled with. So it won't happen all at once, because everybody is at a different rate of evolution, and some people have already chosen en masse on a soul level they don't really want to go down that particular route, and that's also fine. That's up to them. But there are millions that are choosing to try to become more, let's say, self-aware, more conscious, to ascend within their human body, to fully have their perception and life and existence through the heart. There are millions that have chosen that and are at different points on that, let's say, heart evolutionary journey as we speak. And so what I'm saying really could apply to anyone and everyone on that scale or on that spectrum, because as we come into the beginnings of 2019, there is almost like a collective, and I'm gonna laugh here because, or smile here, because as you know, this is an experiential channel again, which means everything I talk about or share I've seen many times professionally over almost a 20-year period now. This is year 19. Or I have been through and experienced, or are going through and experiencing. Hence the word experiential. So there are many of us, and this is regardless of age, race, background, culture, etc., that are really weary of continuing things in a particular way or a particular theme. Now that is actually a healthy sign, not an unhealthy sign, because that is also part of that accepting that what sometimes is best for ourselves or what is best for you may not be what, let's say, your friends or family or your society or culture would necessarily approve of or think was best for you. So part of learning our mastery or sovereignty or becoming more conscious is becoming aware of this kind of thing. And there are many of us, and this is across the board. This is those in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I think the oldest clients I've got in my book are early 80s. So right the way across, are sort of almost like taking a collective like into 2019, because for many of us, myself included, these big evolutionary processes, especially if you have signed up on a soul level to have a real shot at doing this within the human body and becoming the embodiment of it, it has been quite a journey for a lot of us. And you know, I could fill a book, more than one book of mine so far, and that's can be absolutely wonderful, but as a human being, you know, can take its toll and does take its toll. The huge changes and processes that's emotionally, physically, chemically, hormonally, spiritually, in soul, in essence, in energy, aligning, realigning, raising one's consciousness. There is a lot of change involved. It's a big process that goes on 24/7, loads going on in dream state, loads going on at night. You know, let's say our idea of linear time has all gone out the window, and there just isn't really the linear time there anymore. So even more is getting done in the so-called nighttime hours or dream time. So there is a lot going on for people, and when it hasn't been a temporary thing but a number of years, there are some of us that have been involved in an alchemizing kind of transformational process now, personally, but on behalf of the collective for a number of years now. It's not been a recent thing. So that can be quite tiring, and you know, it makes me smile because not many people kind of confess to that or fess up to that it is quite exhausting. So if one has already become quite entrenched in certain patterns, or has got themselves into a situation where they have long-term protracted illnesses, health things, etc., etc., and they are going through these big transformations on behalf of themselves, but also helping on behalf of the collective, because every transformation that takes place on a micro level helps the macro, the outside, the bigger collective. Those that have all that on board as well, or that they've gone through divorces, or they've gone through big losses or bereavements, big changes, lost everything, so many of these we see in big transformational processes. They're dealing with that on a very real, let's say, tangible physical level, but they are also going through this very organic, natural, but very fast-paced, evolutionary process of raising one's consciousness, ascending in the human body 24/7. It doesn't take a day off. So, you know, coming into 2019, it's almost like there is a collective almost gasp of, well, 2018 went by like a flash, and 2019 now, it's almost like, God, now we've got to try and haul ourselves, or haul ass through 2019. And are we really too tired to do that? And can we really be asked to do it? And so there's a number of things going on for a lot of people. So what I would say, 2019, really, I'm going to say there's a lot of closure going on this year. A lot of closure, a lot of doors, metaphorically speaking, being closed in order for one to move forward through new doors and new paths and new opportunities. This is all inner, but also outer as well. And it sounds all very flowery and lovely, and skipping through the garden of roses when I say this, and of course it can be like that, but realistically speaking, that does mean a lot of changes, and some of those changes are not comfortable. They're not comfortable physically, bodily wise, and they're not comfortable for our personalities sometimes, and they're not comfortable because it does mean people leaving your life and new people coming into it, and it means letting go of what you always believed and kind of stepping into something new, which is not really on a personality level. That's a tiny part of this. I'm talking about it all being done inwardly, so one's whole perception changes, consciousness changes, vibration changes. So there's a lot going on. So it's a year really of closure, and I would actually say that this is a year of I'm going to say micro shocks, but also macro shocks for people. So not just on a human, individual, unique basis, people kind of being shocked at the way they viewed the world and how they view it now, or shocked at the changes they want to make, or shocked at how they're changing, or shocked at the consequences of those changes, but also outwardly, you know, in the outer world, let's say the bigger world, the global world, some of those shocks, you know, showing up. That, you know, it's an inevitable part of the truth being revealed, both the truth within ourselves, but the truth globally, and a process of raising the global consciousness, changes have to happen. And some of those changes, when somebody is locked down in a rigid mindset and their whole view of the world is a particular perception, when that is blown open, meaning their heart is blown open suddenly, I mean their metaphysical heart, so the metaphysical heart opens up, their consciousness raises through a life event, through meeting someone, you know, through sometimes a big shock to the system, sometimes it's a near-death experience, all different kind of ways that it happens sometimes for people. That is a shock to people, and it's, again, you know, it's, there are many different pathways that happen in people's lives to encourage them to make a choice, really. I'm going to come down back to that word again, to make a choice as to how they want to experience their time, let's say, time on this earth, and how they don't. And to get really to a point, not only where they are at peace with where they are at, but recognizing that they can create from the moment in where they are at. So they can create changes and, let's say, materializations within the life that they've formally created. Now, I say formally created, if I go back to what I said at the beginning here, it's a year of like closure and new beginnings and endings. What I would say again is that in order for that to happen, we do look back sometimes over our shoulder, metaphorically speaking. We look back and track back, sometimes in our memories, in our thoughts, in our reminiscing, to what has been before. We keep looking back, and that's, again, perfectly fine. Where we get ourselves entangled is if we look back and we're not just looking back, but we're kind of reliving it, almost like in a trauma way. We're re-engaging with it, we're re-engaging with our energy and emotionally, and that's how people get stuck. So it is a year of amazing opportunity for people to kind of recognize that and to come to a place within themselves where they can accept what has gone before. And I always say on this channel, I have a kind of saying on here that your starting point is not your end point, or your originator point, another word for it is not your end point. Where you start is not the ending of you per se, it's where you're starting. And not everybody is starting at the same start line. It's not like a race and everybody's starting at the same point. People are starting at all different points depending on where they're at their with inner ascension process and inner process of coming into their heart and opening their consciousness, raising their consciousness in the heart. So there's a lot going on, and even for people who feel that there isn't a lot going on in their life, actually physically, if their life seems, well, it doesn't seem that fast-paced, there is an awful lot going on inside people. And really the summary of what's going on inside people is to get to a point of acceptance, of awareness, of awakening, of being able to create from one's heart, create one's reality, play with reality in that joyful, childlike joyful creation. To even start playing that particular game, one has to, I'm going to say, accept, face and let go of what has gone before. Now, if you just find that you cannot do that and you're banging your head literally against a brick wall, that is the time then to get some assistance with that, and that is the time then, to get support with that. And there are many clues on this channel, the places to look and how to look, and how to move through that process, clues in the places to look where you might be entangled, and there are actually videos kind of along that similar kind of line. But this is a golden opportunity, because in order to get to the next rung, inner rung of consciousness in the heart, these places have to be let go of, and some people have to dive deep in there and some don't really have to dive deep. It's just like an inner realization and then it's shifted. So a lot going on internally, things going on externally, a lot of people kind of hitting a point where they feel a bit flat, where they feel like they've done 10 rounds in a boxing ring with, you know, Muhammad Ali, or, you know, 10 rounds in a boxing ring with Tyson or someone like that, and then they are literally having to get themselves up, and then it might seem like a bit flat, like, well, it's kind of seems like more of the same, or it's kind of, you know, I'm plateauing. Don't be afraid of some of those moments. It is okay to take a breather now and again and actually, let's say, energetically sit with your energy. The temptation is always to be on the move so fast, 1,000 miles an hour, and distract, and people are very, very afraid of actually looking at themselves or recognizing themselves or sitting with that. But it's also, like I say, a time of really a lot of things happening on a very grand scale, both within the, let's say, the whole collective, but individually, uniquely for people, and not all people starting off at the same place. So there are some people that have been in an awakening process for many years, and others that are just beginning. So still an ending and beginning year, a year of closure and a year of really being true to yourself, because if you're not able to be true to yourself, this is going to get slightly more uncomfortable, as if it hadn't been uncomfortable enough. Slightly more uncomfortable mentally, perhaps physically, you know, in the actual things of your life. Why? It's not an outside force trying to punish you, it's your own internal, let's say, clock, or your own internal consciousness, your own internal soul and spirits, really nagging at you, encouraging you. It's the calling, really, the soul's calling to come into alignment with really the potential of who you are, and the potential of what you have to experience, to live, to expand, to grow, to experience, to create in this life, in this reality. Oh my goodness, this video is going on longer than I thought. So to summarize, 2019, for many, I feel a year of some closure, a year of beginnings, a year of endings. Sometimes that will show up physically in one's lives. A lot of what I'm talking about is also internally, endings to the way your perception was, and new beginnings of a raising of your consciousness, your perception being different. But it can show up, of course, in your life as physical endings and physical beginnings. A year of really getting to the sediment at the bottom of the tank, of recognizing what has been suppressed, repressed, depressed within your energy fields, within your personalities, within your lives and your systems. Different people at different points here, and I always say I'm very big on this. If things come up for you that is slightly overwhelming or slightly challenging, I'm really big on getting support for that. Don't feel that you have to struggle on your own. Get the support for that, because for some people, especially if they're intuitive or empathic, or, you know, they keep a lot inside, it can be a bit of a shock and very challenging to go through something like that. Collectively, outside in the bigger world, the global world, again, what I would say, I'm going to word it as a few shocks. I'm going to word it that way. Really, you could say they're not really wake-up calls in that sense, but the shocks in the sense that it will shake people's view of the world and view of things that they felt were a particular way. It's a shock to a change of perception. So it's a year where there will be, let's say, more revelations globally in alignment with that. Really, the rule of thumb here is go into the heart, go for your metaphysical heart. The way that you really traverse through this with a clear navigation, so to speak, is coming from there. And many of you are already in the heart, but many of you have yet to open up that way, and it can be done in a number of ways, and none of them are pre-planned actually. They come out of left field when you least expect it. It could be by someone you meet, it could be by a life event, like I say, or a shocking event, or a big change just spontaneously. It could be on your own, it could be with people around you that it happens and suddenly happens. But it's that really transformation into the heart that is what the whole journey really has the potential of morphing into, and really what it's all about. It's how we were designed to experience our lives and consciousness on this planet, designed to create and participate and play in our realities. And for so long, for so many of us, it hasn't really seemed like that on this planet. We've derailed ourselves, others have derailed us intentionally, and I don't mean necessarily other humans, I mean interference from outside. So there has been long-term patterning there, and we have just not been used to taking hold of the reins, so to speak, and actually taking the responsibility for the creation and the direction that our life experiences are taking. So I don't really want this video to go on any longer than that. I think I've said everything I needed to say. Not one word of it was planned, and I didn't even know the title of it till a minute before I came on here. So I do feel that's everything I want to say on this one. The other video that I was going to bring out, that I'm sure that will materialise sometime over the next so many days, when I have the last pieces of that particular realisation. Sometimes it works that way for me. But on that note, Happy New Year to you guys. Look after yourselves. I will love you and leave you, and also look after one another. Thanks for watching. Look after yourselves. See you again soon, guys. Bye.